never in my 20 companies that I have built did I ever start out with an idea that ended up like I thought it was going to start. Mm-hmm. I started with an idea, so excited. This is the greatest idea in the world. This is going to be the greatest idea, the greatest product, the business breakthrough. And it never was. And for the ones that worked, and some of them didn't work, but the ones that worked, it was never what I started out to be. And I did learn this. I had to lose a lot, make a lot of mistakes before I got it right. And then you never really get it totally right, because then when you get it right and you stop innovating and creating and making it better, then it'll die. And you see the examples of that every day when we see Eastman Kodak was an icon of business, pretty much gone. J.C. Penney, still around, but irrelevant. Sears Roebuck, still around, but irrelevant. These were icons. And yet then you see Walmart, which is, 70 years old? It's still relevant, right, because they keep changing. And here is the thing that I want to get to you, and then Matthew's he's got some really good stuff to cover with you, is don't be afraid of losing. You've got to enjoy losing. And you say, that's stupid. It's not stupid, because you only learn by getting out there doing. Go test, do, talk, and then people are going to feed back. So that's a stupid idea. But this is the way you could make it work. And you listen and say, oh, I go. The faster you lose, the better off you're going to be. Because then you're looking at the reality of the feedback you're getting from the prospect, from the customer. Because here's what you and I have got to do to make it work. We've got to get someone to like our product or service and be willing to buy it at a price that helps us create cash flow, right? Remember, it's cash flow. And we're going to have a whole session on cash flow. It's not about just income. If you have income that comes in at millions of dollars and you have expenses that go out at tens of millions of dollars, you go out of business. Whether you're a mom and pop or whether you're General Motors. And General Motors had to be bailed out. So it's about cash flow. It's about ideas that people embrace and are willing. And here's how they validate. They validate your idea. They validate your product by being willing to pay at a rate that you can make money, that you can create cash flow. You know, in the stock market, Matthew, I know you, Harvard Business School, EBITDA. EBITDA means nothing. Revenue means something only if it generates cash flow. At the end of the day, and at the beginning of the day, I got to look at that sheet every morning, and I do it for all of my companies to this day. Every morning, I look at what came in and what went out.
Yeah.
And if we don't have more money coming in to go out, I'm not very happy, and I shouldn't be, and you shouldn't be, because that means we have negative cash flow. If you have negative cash flow, you could go out of business.
Right.
So Matthew, tell us about the book.
And we could probably hit a lot here. This is called Little Bets: How Breakthrough Ideas Emerge from Small Discoveries. Peter Sims, the author. Dad, you've had him on your radio show. Yep. What's great is he profiles everybody from Chris Rock, the comedian, Amazon.com, Google, and what he discovers is that there are two kind of entrepreneurs. There's conceptual geniuses.
Yeah.
Mozart was a genius. Somebody just thinks up an idea, and a lot of you are out there probably saying, hey, I got to think up what's a great business idea. Wow, if I just thought about selling books online, I could have been Amazon.com. Well, let me tell you, Amazon.com didn't necessarily start that way. What most of us are, 99.9% of the world, are experimental innovators. It's far more common. They use experimental, iterative, trial and error approaches to gradually build up to breakthroughs. Let me give you a couple examples. Yeah. Chris Rock, the comedian, spends 6 months to a year working on an hour-long new presentation, and he'll go to a small comedy club in New Jersey where nobody knows, and he'll test his material out, and he'll see how people react before he gets on a big stage. Now, Amazon.com, or let's use Google, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, when they started working on a design project in the library at Stanford.
Yeah, I knew that.
And it was an algorithm to try and figure out how to organize the book collections more quickly. And then they took it and said, well, we could organize the internet, but where they never really made money until they got to the ad revenue, and they started to figure out the AdWord projects that could prioritize. So now if you're if you're advertising computers and somebody searches on computers, it matches up advertisers with searches. And so it took them years and several iterative processes. Amazon.com, which is a great example, and Jeff Bezos talks about our history is full of things where we come up with an innovation that we thought was really cool and the customers didn't care. And so obviously they started out selling books and they expanded. They tried auctions like eBay and they failed. So they embraced this mentality of try little things. And the last example I'll give you, and then I'll let you comment, is a Hewlett-Packard, which of course is a huge company, years ago in the 60s, 70s, came up with their first handheld calculator. And they said it's $1,000 to build this hand. Who's going? Back then, everybody used slide rules, and why would somebody pay $1,000? So they said, well, let's just make 1,000. Let's make 1,000 of these handheld calculators, and they sold them for $400 or $500 a piece. And what they found is that they got gobbled up, and all of a sudden they said, people are willing to pay for this handheld calculator. And so then they started to make more of them, and gradually over time they move into printers and servers and other things. But it didn't start as a huge business. It started with a little bet. Try a little bit and see how the market responds.
Yeah, let me tell you one, Matthew, and you know this one, idea that I had and executed to an extent that I thought was the best idea that I've ever had back then and even now. And everybody I talked to said, oh, that's a great idea. And here was the idea. I was going to take when we had ticket jackets in the airlines, and everybody had a ticket jacket. I said, everybody's got that ticket jacket. They hand it they keep it when they go to the seat. They take it, when they leave the plane. You got a ticket jacket. And there's no advertising in the ticket jacket. I said, how cool would it be to be advertising in the ticket jacket? Because they're forced to look at that ticket jacket. To make a long story short, I got every airline to let me print their ticket jackets free in order to put advertising in. They thought that was a great idea. I got a printer up in Chicago who had the presses that could print 12 million ticket jackets every month. Mm-hmm. I went out to the advertisers. I got all the big, I sold the thing out. They were paying $100,000 per page per month. And I'm talking about General Motors and Eastman Kodak and, wait a minute, they went out of business, didn't they? But all the MasterCard still in business. Yeah. And a lot of people, AT&T, they bought it up. And I said, wow, I've got it made. This is going to go. A year later, it was gone. You know why it was gone? Because nobody read the advertising. And the airlines weren't very efficient at getting my ticket jackets out. They were putting other ticket jackets they'd already printed into the hopper, and so we had a tough time with distribution. At the end of the day, I gave the company to the printer and let him try to do what he could do, but he couldn't salvage anything. I don't care how great you think the idea is, or how great I think the idea is. Once the consumer looks at it and says, I buy, I like, I'll come back, you've got a hit. If they say no, you got to adjust, even shut it down or adjust it. And I have had both experiences. That one I shut down.
Yeah, and one of the chapters in here is failing quickly to learn fast. And we talk about that here is try something, but learn quickly if it's not working. But this is not a natural mindset. We were talking before we came on about most of us in school grew up, I want to study, I want to take a test, I want to do well. You're rewarded for doing, nobody's rewarded well for doing failure. So the book talks about most of our mindset is threatened by failure. If you fail, you feel like, well, maybe it's an attack on your self-worth and your self-esteem. But there's themes he talks about: experiment, learn by doing, play, have a playful attitude that makes it fun. Don't make someone feel bad if they fail. Immerse yourself in the details. Find the problem. We've talked about problems. Iterate, refine, repeat, test. Different things. But most of us aren't wired this way. And yet, I'll give a quote. Thomas Edison said, "If I find 10,000 ways something won't work, I haven't failed." So if he tries something 10,000 times, I'm not discouraged, because every wrong attempt discarded is just one step forward.
And here's the deal. You're the one who's going to have to do that. But it's the fun of it all. In football, I was the quarterback. I wanted to know why every play was. And I experimented with formations, the spread formation, the shotgun formation, putting 3 receivers on one side, having an empty backfield, all these things to see what happened. Mm-hmm. And I, as I was evolving as a quarterback and thinking and being productive, I never had the final answer. Because when I did something, my competition, the defense, they reacted. When you do something, your competition is going to do something else. How do you stay ahead of the curve? You have to keep going. And I found that my game plans not only had to change from game to game and year to year, they had to change from quarter to quarter and from series to series. That's the fun of it. You're never going to master it. But if you embrace this and reach out and keep plugging and keep trying and keep listening and keep knocking on doors and keep listening to our program and read things, then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but you will continually be ahead of that curve. You will give yourself a much better chance to make it, and you will have the time of your life in doing that. The guys and women that just sit there and say, I've got the magic formula. I have got it. I have discovered it. I am bright. I am wonderful. You're the ones, and they're the ones that are just a step away from disaster. I don't want you to be a step away from disaster. I want you to be a step away from success and continued success and sustainability. And so that's what we are going to drive you about and challenge you and keep you going and moving and thinking and changing and being relevant and being transparent to your customer, to your prospect, to your business partner. And those are the essentials. Matthew, tell us about the book
Well,
again.
Little Bets, How Breakthrough Ideas Emerge from Small Discoveries, Peter Sims. It's a great book, and I'd encourage you to go pick up a copy and read.
And you can pick up a copy and go to Amazon and read it. You go to our website, smallbizclub.com, and we have we can order it. You can order it through Amazon with us if you like. But I think you'll really enjoy the book, and it really is great practical information that I think will be very relevant to you and your business. Thanks for joining us. See you next week.